Hey guys, what's up? Joseph the Realtor, and I'm back with another YouTube video. This video is a training that we have for the agents at Prestige Property Group. And in this training, we take them to a live sealed envelope new construction house. This is in Carlstadt. We're gonna walk them through the house, talk about roughing, sheetrock, building costs, time frame, permits, anything you can imagine when it comes to new construction. We're gonna talk about foundations, we're gonna talk about everything. So if you're building a house or if you're thinking about building a house, please watch this video, but first, make sure you like and subscribe. Stay tuned. I'm gonna give you a brief synopsis of what's happening here right now and the overall process. And if you guys try to think of some amazing questions, think of questions and I will answer them, all right? So this was a cape. He knocked it down. Every single town has different requirements as to what you can build. In Carlstadt, for a single family, I believe it's 40 by 100. 40 feet wide, 100 feet deep. Every single town is different. And if you want to build a two-family, you need 50 by 100. And you can only cover a certain percentage of the lot. It's called permeable surface. Like I know, for example, I just dealt with one in Saddle River. Saddle River, you need 2 acres to build a house. If it's less than 2 acres, you need a variance. To build a single family house, you need a minimum of 2 acres. In Upper Saddle River, you need 1 acre. So it's very good that you guys know about acreage, required lot size, square footage, et cetera, et cetera. Does anybody know how big of a house you need, how big of a lot you need in parameters to build a house, single family?
5,001 square feet.
Not anymore, it used to be.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's 9,300.
Oh.
9,400. Don't quote me, but it's somewhere like that. So you need 9,300 square feet to build a single family house in parameters. All right? What's the second thing you guys should look at in regards when you're looking at a lot? Sure. So all of that. Setbacks, I would just say, I would put it under the category of topography. Do you guys know about surveys? When you buy a house and you build a brand new construction, you need a survey. You need a basic general survey that's less than 6 months old. So that survey will tell you exactly where your lot begins, how wide it is, and where it ends, how deep it is. A topography survey will tell you the hills and ranges of the land in the survey. So you have a regular survey, you have a topography survey. If you're building a new construction house, they're going to ask you for something called a stakeout survey. A stakeout survey basically shows you where like 10 feet off of the foundation is, so that you know exactly where to put your foundation. To knock down a house, depending on how big it is, will cost you between $20,000 to $30,000, give or take, just to knock down the house and get rid of everything. That's good information to know. When I first started, I didn't know that. I would get that question all the time, and I'd be like, I don't know, $50,000? $20,000 to $30,000, depending on how big the house is. Cool? Does anybody have any questions on that? Has anybody ever seen a house get knocked down?
Who knocks down the house? Is it the builder or is it another?
So I would say a builder is kind of just somebody who's in charge of all the subcontractors. A builder is somebody who has a GC license, who can GC a project, general construct a project. A builder is not actually like putting hammers and nails and stuff like that, you know? A builder is just a guy who's making calls. I'm a builder. You're a builder. We can all be builders. But a proper builder will have something called builder's risk policy insurance and also have a general construction license. So if you're building a brand new house in New Jersey, I highly recommend you hire a general contractor who can help you start to finish. If you want to GC the project yourself, if it's your personal home, in New Jersey you guys are actually allowed to do that as a homeowner. And it helps because you don't have to provide something called a 10-year warranty because it's for you. I think if you were to sell it within the 10 years, you might need to get that homeowner's warranty, but if it's for you, you don't need that. So I'm GCing my own personal house, ground up new construction right now, and it's very interesting to say the least, because I think I know a lot, but I'm learning. This is a type of business, just like real estate, where it's like you're constantly learning. You'll never know everything because information is constantly changing. So he knocked down this house. Right? Obviously, he did surveys. He hired an architect. He hired an engineer. Engineer probably cost you around $10,000. Architect will cost you anywhere between $5,000 to $30,000, if not more, for a house like this.
Say that again. Engineer is how much?
Engineer is about 10,000, give or take, and an architect will cost you, some architects are cheap, but they don't do good work. 5 to 30,000 for a house of this size. Some are overcharging, some are undercharging. I'd say a happy medium is 10,000. Now there are architects that both do architectural and structural. I found one who's fantastic. He charges 18,000 for both combined.
What does architect do and what does engineer do? What is the difference?
So an engineer is going to determine like how thick a foundation wall needs to be, the size of the beams that are being used. Like if you look at this living space right here, this beam right here is engineered by a structural engineer so that this can be an open concept. So you definitely need an engineer. But if I had to give you guys advice, if you're watching this, I would say hire an architect who does both structural and architectural.
Yeah, that's what I was, usually architect is supposed to calculate everything.
There are some unique homes that require a special structural engineer. Like if you have a house that has a 50-foot open concept living space and you need a steel beam in there, the architect might not have the programming or software or the experience to size that beam.
So after the engineer gives you like the proper calculations or requirements or suggestions for that, only after that the contractors who actually build come into this job.
Oh yeah, 100%. You can't do anything without approvals from the town. So you're not starting this project at all until you have your permits. And the only way you're going to get your permits is if you give them a structural set and an architectural set of plans. And they have to be approved. Everything has to line up, including the permeable surface, everything. Zoning, setbacks, everything has to be approved. Soup to nuts, I mean, I would say if you were to buy a house, knock it down, and go through the motions of designing, depending on how detailed you are with the design, getting the permits and approvals, it could be 6 months to a year before you do that. That's why if you're selling homes, it's good to talk to your clients. If a house is livable before you knock it down, like I lived in my house before I knocked it down. I lived in it for a year. It took me about a year to design the new house I wanted and apply for the permits and get the permits and the whole nine. So everything's situational. It's important to know that when you're thinking about carrying costs with your client. Like some people, they're buying a house, like a total piece of shit house, with the intention of knocking it down as an investment, like this guy did, the owner of this house. So permits, approvals, everything is and then you could start. There's something called a demolition permit if you're knocking down the house. In order to knock down the house, if it's an older house, you need a demo checklist. Demo checklist is crazy because you have to test for termites, you have to test for asbestos, you have to shut off all the utilities, there's so much you have to do. There's a whole checklist. Every town has a different checklist. Then and only then that checklist is complete and submitted, can you get a permit to demo the house. People will usually get the permit to demo the house first before they get the permit to build the house.
Do you have to notify the neighbors?
You only notify the neighbors if you're applying for a variance.
Okay.
Yeah, every town is different, but if you need a variance, like I'll give you an example of a variance. I think that's the best way to understand it. Say the setback for Karlstadt is 50 feet from the street. And this house, the new house is going to be 49 feet from the street. You need a variance for a foot. Unfortunately, a variance can take like 4 months if it's approved. If it's not approved, then it can take longer. So variances are annoying. Usually a good architect or structural engineer will design your house so that you don't need any variances. That's why I said structural engineer and architect are super important. They're important for the approval process, but they're also important for when you're at the job site, because just so you guys know, you need a set of plans at the job site at all times. You can get a serious fine if there's no set of plans at a job site. So if you're GCing the house yourself, or if you have a GC, and your plumber comes in here and he's like, oh yeah, this is a change order. It's gonna cost you $5,000 more. You could say, no, here are the plans. This is what we agreed on in the contract, signed and sealed by both of us. So your plans will protect you from contractors trying to screw you over. That's why I'm sure it sounds like you had a bad experience with contractors. If you have strong architectural plans, there should be no change orders, unless you change your mind about something. Yeah, variance could be anything, but usually variances are for height of the house, Variances are for setbacks. If you want to encroach on a setback, if it's too close to the street, you can get a variance for square footage. You can get a variance for use. Single family, like if the owner of this house really wanted to make this a 2-family, he could apply for a variance. And then that variance request, he'll say, oh, there's a ton of 2-families in the area. Why can't I build a new 2-family? So variance could be anything that's non-conforming.
So, and how that will go to the people in the neighborhood? So people will receive a letter from the court or?
So what you would do is you'd hire a land use attorney, and that land use attorney would fill out the variance application. He'd work with your structural engineer and your architect, again, why it's super important to have the right ones. And then he'll also send out, it's usually, I think it's like 100 people in the radius, or half a mile, something like that. And then they'll all get notifications of when the variance hearing is to be held, and they can either attend and say no, or they just don't show up. 9 times out of 10, they don't show up, unless you're applying for a variance for something crazy, you know?
If one person shows up and says no, does that get your variance denied?
That's a good question. I don't know. Yeah, I should find that out. That's a great question. I don't think so. There has to. So the variance. The variance is held by a board of people, and the board of people have to approve the variance or deny the variance. Usually they'll hear people out, but it's ultimately their decision to approve or deny the variance. All right?
So I had a client that wanted to purchase a lot in Haworth, and we were told that we needed an engineer for the land to show water, and all that. I don't remember, is that a structural engineer, or is that a different type of
Yeah,
engineer?
so
'Cause
that's why I said it's always good to hire separately, or one architect who knows how to do structural and civil.
Yeah.
Structural, civil, and architectural. Every single house, if it's a big piece of land, needs a water retention system.
It was an acre, it wasn't that.
Acres big.
Yeah.
So so that's a very detailed question, but I'll answer it briefly because that is something you should know if you're selling land in Haworth. Haworth is an amazing town. So you as a realtor, if you bring a piece of land to a builder, you got to know what you're bringing them.
Right.
You got to know exactly what you can build on there. I wouldn't say as a realtor you need to know about water retention. If you're selling it to a builder, he should know and expect to put in water retention systems.
I just went to the town to see what they wanted, and that was one of the things that they said.
Yeah, so if you build a house, right, you're taking up land. When it rains, what happens to the water?
Right.
It gets absorbed into the land. But if you have a house where land is, then that water has to go somewhere, right? And water usually hits a roof, goes into the gutters, and then what?
Goes into the ground or into something.
Well, it can't.
Into
If you have, it's all calculated. So and that's the engineer will do that. If the water hits the roof, goes down into the gutters, and then goes away from the house, it can't go into the ground because it's large volumes of water going into one part of the ground. So the way it would work is it would go into a water retention system, usually 1,000 gallons, 500 to 1,000 gallons. They made me put 3 of them in my house.
Yeah.
I negotiated them. He wanted 7,000 a piece. I negotiated down to 3,500 each because I gave the guy the entire job, knocking down the house, doing the site work, digging the foundation, et cetera, et cetera. So these are things you can negotiate.
Okay.
So it's called site work. That's part of the site work.
Okay.
So you as a general contractor or your general contractor will hire one person to knock down the house, dig the hole where the new house is going to go, and put in the retention systems, and then do the grading of the land, and then backfill.
So you're not flooding everybody around.
So you're not flooding your neighbors.
Right.
The biggest thing is, like, if you guys notice, there's a sill fence around this entire property. That's a requirement. If you're GCing the project yourself, the biggest thing, if you want to really piss off a town, is you don't do that stupid little fence. That stupid little fence, if it's not out, the soil will go everywhere. And what's going to happen? Your neighbors are going to be like, hey, what the fuck? There's soil all over my street. It happens. Especially after a heavy rain, all that soil comes down. It's a big problem. So that's a soil retention fence. That needs to be around the entire property. There also has to be something called a pad. See that gravel pad right there? Usually it's like a 5x10 or a 10x10 pad. It's gravel. It's anything that your car can drive up on and drive off of without moving any soil. So super important. So the basics, right? Foundation, you dig the hole, you pour the footing, you pour the foundation, and then you prep the slab. Meaning if you have a bathroom in the basement, your plumber is going to come here and prep the slab. If you have the electrical and it happens to go through the foundation, he's going to prep a sleeve for the footing, pour the concrete, and now you have your foundation walls, you have your slab, and you have your footings, and then they backfill. You have to have inspections for all of that. You have a slab inspection, you have a footing inspection, you have a backfill inspection. After that, you do the framing. You have your framer come in. A smart GC will, when the framer is doing his job, he'll come here and backfill everything as he's framing and start doing the site work, meaning leveling out the land, maybe putting in the curb cut for the driveway. He'll do the site work as the house is being framed. When the house is framed, you as a GC or your GC will have the windows coming in and delivered as he's done framing. That's the smartest way to do it. Hard to plan. That's why people hire GCs. Windows are delivered and you have your roofer doing the roofing and the siding. So this way you can quickly get to the point of a sealed envelope. This right now is a sealed envelope. That means the house is sealed from all temperature, all weather. The gutters are on, they lead to the seepage pits, siding is on, roof is on, windows are installed, and a contractor can come here and work even if it's raining or it's cold. So sealed envelope is the safe point for builders, and this way you can start the roughing. Roughing is basically rough plumbing, rough electrical, rough gas, basically rough everything, HVAC. So all those guys can come in, and they usually don't like to work around each other. So I would basically coordinate them around each other. I would tell the HVAC guy, hey, the rough electrical is done. I would tell the plumber, hey, the rough plumbing, when you're going to finish it, and coordinate all together. Once you finish your rough, you have a rough inspection.
What are the average time frames of all those?
I'd say an HVAC guy can do the entire house in a week, depending on how big of a crew he has. These are all questions, just so you guys know, before you hire anybody, electrician, plumber, all these guys, you have to add yourself. If you're GCing the project yourself, you have to add yourself as additional insured on their insurance policy. Your GC will have insurance, but if you're GCing the house yourself, you have to be additional insured on their insurance policy. This way you're protected. The house is protected. I would make them sign a contract. In those contracts, you're going to determine how they're going to get paid. Usually it's divvied up by 3. So if your HVAC is $40,000, you're going to give them $12,000 to start. Once they pass rough, another $20,000. And then once they pass inspection at the very, very end, that's when they get their final check. Same thing with electrician, same thing with plumber.
And the GC schedules all those.
GC schedules everything. He's in charge soup to nuts. I would also make them sign a copy of the plans, each one of them. You need to have plans on site at all times. Keep those. I would laminate them so they don't get beat up like these plans. And then I would just have a separate signed set for the HVAC guy, for the plumber, for all these guys. So this way there's no mistakes. When you're hiring an architect, make sure the architect is going to draw out the gas lines and all that stuff. You know, I recently learned that. I hired an architect who was $10,000, great price. But he didn't map out where the HVAC lines are. He didn't map out where the gas lines are. Because a lot of times, these plumbers, they're butchers. They'll come here and they'll drill big holes through your framing. You don't want that. That's why if you're GCing the project yourself, you kind of have to be here every day checking the work. You know? So after the inspection for the framing and the rough inspection's passed, then you can insulate the house. Once you insulate the house, you can get an insulation inspection, and then you can sheetrock. And then from that point on, you don't need any inspections until the very end. So sealed envelope is one milestone, and passing all rough and insulation inspections is another milestone.
What is your advice to buyers who want to buy architectural drawings from anyone randomly online?
Buying architectural drawings? I would never do that. Because every piece of land is situational. Every town has different zoning ordinances. Those plans you buy might not work with your land or town. So stay very far away from that.
Okay.
You can definitely get ideas, like take it, but if your house is 50 feet wide and those plans are for a house that's 60 feet wide, it kind of doesn't make sense. Your architect, you're going to pay an architect regardless. He's going to design the house with you. When you're designing a house with an architect, make sure when you negotiate your architectural price, it includes all the stuff I talked about and unlimited revisions and maybe 2 site visits. Meaning you're going to say to the architect, hey, you're going to come to this house, you're going to measure this house. It should take a few hours. If your architect is in and out of the house in 20 minutes, fucking run. It should take a few hours. He's going to measure the outside. He's going to measure the inside. He's going to look at steps. He's going to look at where the windows are if you're changing all that stuff. If you're knocking it down, he should do a site visit so that he sees like where the sun hits, where the sun rises, the topography, all that stuff. Maybe come up with cool ideas, how to make a basement egress. There's so many things. That's why if I'm building new construction, which I plan on doing for the rest of my career, I'm spending 20, 30 grand on architectural at minimum because it's the most important part. And it'll save you hundreds of thousands and time.
Okay, I have a question. How about budget-wise? I'm sorry. Budget-wise, let's say you have a budget of 200K for the house
200K for what?
to start roughly building. How much should you anticipate to go over? Like if anything happens, like somebody asks you, oh, I'm new at this. How much should I have at the side to hold it, just in case?
You know, I would just factor in $300 a square foot, which is aggressive. But that should protect you from overspending. Even if you overspend, $300 a square foot is super safe. It's a bit
$300
much,
square
but $300 a square foot.
That's good to know.
Brand new construction. No, $300 a square foot is pretty aggressive.
New construction or renovation?
New construction.
New construction, yeah.
Yeah, renovations, it's really, it's situational, yeah. I think as a realtor, I try to stay away from giving numbers over like
I
a
know, but
bathroom.
most new people are,
Like you're going to renovate this
ask that
bathroom 10
question.
grand. And if it costs them 8, you look like a hero.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be like, yeah, this bathroom's going to cost you 3 grand. I've seen realtors do that at showings. I'm like, yo, what the hell?
Add 25%.
Yeah, exactly. So, does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
Good, thank you.
I have a question.
What would be the last phase before not accepting any adjustment to be made on the property?
I would say when the house is sheetrocked and the cabinets are ordered, if you're buying a new construction, right, you should expect, and if there's a crazy, like I'll give you an example. I just had one in Rutherford. It wasn't a new construction, but it was a gut renovation and an addition, and the clients were Indian. And Indian people love darker cabinets. It's just it's just known. They love brown cabinets, brown countertops, and that stuff is really not on trend right now. So the builder was like, hey, if I'm going to put in these brown cabinets and brown counter, I want a non-refundable deposit. So they gave a $150,000 non-refundable deposit. And that protects the builder from like, if they back out of the deal or don't get approved for the mortgage. Usually you'd like them to get a full pre-approval with a mortgage commitment and a deposit in place before they even discuss changes. But when you're representing a builder, ask the builder for a spec sheet. A spec sheet is basically a sheet that goes over the cost of what the builder is going to spend. And if the client wants to go put nicer stuff in, they just pay the difference. A good real estate attorney will have a special rider. It's called a new construction rider. So when you're hiring your attorney, I'm sure you know you work with Peter. Peter has a specific rider for new construction. And that protects the buyer at all costs. And it's like, okay, how much are you spending on cabinets? $15,000? No, we want white oak, solid wood, inlet cabinets. Those are $50,000. We know that we have to pay the difference. Because the general public doesn't really know about new construction and the cost of things. So when something's delayed by a month, they get pissed. They get pissed at the realtor. They get pissed at the builder. They're like, what the fuck? But they don't understand that this stuff is it's just out of the builder's hands and out of your hands. You know?
So you have the budget more.
Yeah, they should budget more. Like, they can't walk into a house and say, oh, yeah, I want the entryway in marble. Like, the builder's going to put porcelain for $2 a square foot, and marble's going to cost $40 a square foot. It's a major difference. So set the expectation and tone. Now, on the flip side of it, if you're a realtor bringing a buyer to a new construction, we are not door openers. We know the cost of things. So if the builder says, yeah, I was going to put some porcelain, and it's a $2.5 million house, that's not okay. Mr. Builder, you are expected to put this in the house. So you want to make sure your buyer doesn't get fucked when they're going to a new construction house with you. Because builders will read that buyer and you, they'll read your experience and they'll read your buyer. If they have deep pockets, if if they're hungry for the house, they really want the house, and they're tired of looking, and I'm a builder, I'm sorry, but I'm going to take advantage of that situation. If I have a nice lot, beautiful house, I designed it perfectly, and I see you really like it, I'm going to say, yeah, I was going to put this in here, but if you want this, it's $40,000 more, and it's a non-refundable deposit. So the first form of defense from your buyers is you guys as realtors. In your knowledge, exactly.
When you're prepping the land, you do tank sweeps?
Always do a tank sweep. You recommend your builder does a tank sweep. If there is no tank sweep, I mean, just so you know, in order to get a 10-year builder's warranty, tank sweep is one of the items that the builder has to submit, yeah.
What is 10-year warranty? What is that?
Somebody give her the mic.
What is 10-year warranty? You spoke a few times about it. What is it?
Yeah, that's a great question that I just heard for the first time. 10-year warranty is basically from the state of New Jersey.
Only in New Jersey?
It might be New York. I don't know. I only know New Jersey, honestly. But 10-year warranty is a warranty that the builder has to provide. He can't get it until he has a CO. Once he has a CO, he can apply for a 10-year builder's warranty. This is something that you guys as realtors should also stay on top of, even if you're representing the buyer, not the builder, because you have to make sure the builder is staying on top of it, because it takes a long time to get from Trenton. I once drove down to Trenton to try to speed things up, right? Huh? It actually worked out great, honestly. They were like, oh, I feel like they forgot. I walked in there, and the guy was like, oh, yeah, for sure, yeah, totally. We're working on this. We got it the next day, coincidentally.
This is mandatory for new construction.
Mandatory for new construction, unless you're building for yourself and not selling it. Then you don't need it.
What does it do? Warranty on what?
Yeah,
Anything?
so the first 2 years of the 10-year builder's warranty covers anything structural and anything mechanical. All 10 years covers the property from structural.
Why wouldn't you do it if you're living in condition?
Because you're not selling it. You only need it when you're selling a property to somebody else. If you own the house and you're living in it and something goes wrong after 5 years, you're not going to sue yourself, you know? So, I thought you were going to say I've sued myself. Somebody give him the mic. Are you good? Did I answer your question?
I had one follow-up. Is that
Yeah.
only for the new construction or if got renovation as well?
Yeah, great question. So when you're bringing a buyer to a house that's renovated, like even if it has an addition and it's renovated, you do not need a 10-year builder's warranty. A lot of people do this purposely. They'll leave one foundation wall up, and if you just leave one foundation wall up, you do not have to provide a 10-year builder's warranty. So it's just a builder's trick that they do. However, I think it greatly determines and affects value. So if you have an opportunity to knock down a house completely and you're expecting to compare it to a new construction house, it's not a comparable. Appraisers will look at new construction first before they look at gut renovations and additions as comparable sales. Yeah,
How do you know if they just did the one wall or if they?
because it has to be disclosed. If you look on the MLS, the house was built in 1950s, but it's a brand new construction. They left one foundation wall. It'll say 1950s new construction. But if it's brand new construction, it'll say new construction only.
But that's input by the agent, and some agents are a little sketchy or don't necessarily put things properly. So will
By the
tax
time it
them-
gets to the attorneys, it will never make it past attorneys. No attorney will allow their client to buy a new construction house without that 10-year builder's warranty, unless they're terrible attorneys, which is possible. So choose your attorney wisely. Law offices of Peter Jeezy's.
You can usually find out too, like going in the basement. New constructions are usually bigger basements than
Correct.
existing
Correct.
foundation.
If you see like a stone or brick foundation, and then it's all new cinder block or poured concrete, it's very obvious it's not new construction.
So I wanted your advice on spotting high quality materials. A lot of times I go into properties and every single agent is like, "Oh, this is the best of the best," and like, are there a couple of upgrade options that we could see that are like common as far as like cost a lot more money that we can potentially point out to somebody?
Sure, yeah. I mean, okay, so these are TGI beams. This is a perfect example right here. These are not regular 2x8s or 2x10s. These are TGI beams, so these are more expensive. They, I think, are super cool beams. They can carry more of a load. So, all right, so when you're building a new construction house, right, a lot of times you'll work with a lumber supply company, and that lumber supply company will give you your lumber, they'll give you your windows, they'll give you your siding material. You can get it all from the same place, and as a builder or general contractor, you tend to get a discount on those things. I hate to say this, but general contractors usually have a markup on that stuff. Like I was looking for general contractors for my house, and that general contractor told me, yeah, the framing, we got to use my framer. It's going to cost you $100,000 for framing. And I'm like, my framing material list says that I'm going to spend $30,000, and my framer is going to take $30,000 in labor. So that's $60,000. So that $40,000, it's not going towards nothing. You know, that general contractor has to do the framing checklist. He has to take delivery of the lumber. He has to take delivery of the windows. He has to make sure there's no damage. He has to make sure everything's here. He has to go through the house and make sure it's framed correctly, matching the plans. So yes, but is it worth $40,000 on top of another $40,000 that's marked up on other things? There are some general contractors that make a minimum of $250,000 per project. I actually think $250,000 is fair if it's a 7,000 plus square foot house. However, there are some general contractors that make $600,000 more. Usually they have a lot of experience. It's a multi-million dollar house. So to answer your question, yeah, there's definitely, this is the only example here, I would say. I mean, yeah, I was going to talk about windows. Windows are like a big, people think they know everything about windows. But a lot of builders right now are putting in these Anderson windows. This is a perfect example. This is a, not to shit on this build, but this is what this area calls for. This is, whose purse is this? Oh, it is? Sorry. I have a man purse too, so you're it's green. This is an Anderson window, right? Anderson is a brand of windows, but this is an Anderson 200 window. Anderson has many different levels of window. There's an Anderson 400 window. There's an Anderson E-Series window. There's another window that, I forget the name of it.
These are hundreds.
Are these hundreds? No, these are 200s. No, hundreds is Silverline. Oh, they are 100. Anderson changes a lot, honestly. Anderson bought a company called Silverline. Those are the cheapest. If you see those in a house, super cheap. And a lot of times you can tell how much a builder will spend. Like there are upgrades you can make, like these windows are black on the outside, white on the inside. This window is just flat here. The 400 series have a sill to them, which is nice, so when it rains, the water runs off. This is a vinyl window. Anderson 400 and up is wood construction window, which is better. There are different levels of glass you can get. You can get like super efficient glass. You can get glass that has a tint for the sun. E-Series windows is one-piece powder-coated windows. Is it powder-coated or coated with, it's basically a metal on the outside. So there's different levels of windows you can put into a house. I recommend watching videos on the difference between Anderson and Marvin, Anderson and, what's the other one? Pella is the big one. Anderson, Marvin, Pella are the biggest brands in North Jersey. They sell the most windows. Do not do Anderson Renewal. Do not. They will literally destroy you on pricing. I had a client, and she bought a 3-family house in East Orange, and they came to our house, and they're like, yeah, we do financing. And people, when they see financing, they're like, oh, I could finance the entire project of the windows. But they'll spend $100,000 on windows that should have cost them $20,000. But they're financing it. So Anderson Renewal is a scam. Don't sue me, Anderson. Sanderson Renewal is a scam. Yeah, maybe you just blur it out. But Windows is a big one as far as upgrades. Cabinets are a big one as far as upgrades. Adding a generator, the amperage, 150, 200. What else can be considered an upgrade? Floors are definitely considered an upgrade. Thickness of sheetrock, 1/2 inch versus 3/4 inch. 3/4 inch is better. Insulation is definitely an upgrade. People like, there's regular insulation, then there's Roxul insulation, which is rock wool, soundproof insulation, and then spray foam is the best. So if you see a builder putting spray foam, I actually think they're changing, some towns require spray foam in the roof line to make it more of an envelope.
Square footage of recessed lighting, like what the requirement is or what the guideline is for that?
I believe it or not, I don't think there's a requirement as far as recessed lighting. There's just a requirement for, I think it's every 6 feet for outlets, and they have to be a certain distance from the ground, and I believe they also all have to be level. A lot of times when you walk into like these crappy flips, and the first thing I come in contact with is the outlets, and sometimes you'll see one outlet here, one outlet lower, and I'm like, oh, they didn't do anything with permits. I'm like, fuck. You know, so there's a lot of things you as a seasoned realtor can catch and say like, oh, this is a shitty flip. Grout lines is a big one. You walk into the bathrooms, the grout lines are like this, you know? The faucet's here, the tile ends here, and there's this much grout, you know? Or the floor is this much thicker. You're like basically stepping up into the bathroom. They're like, it's a novice tile guy. If they hired a novice tile guy and they're okay with it, then what's behind the walls, you know?
Washer dryers. A lot of new constructions, they're putting them on like second, third floors. Is there anything I should be looking for as a realtor? Like, oh, they need to have like something special in case of leaks or something like that?
Yeah, so you definitely want to make sure there's a drain on the lower level. An upgrade, to answer your question from before, would be 2 washer dryers, like a double unit. And then an upgrade from that would be a recessed gas line and exhaust, recessed in the wall. You ever see a washer dryer get installed and it's like sticking out from the wall?
Yeah.
So an upgrade, in my opinion, would be like recessed washer dryer lines and 2 of them. Another upgrade, interior walls. See, this is a 2x4. You could do 2x6 interior walls, so it's a little bit thicker. Or if it's a wall that's used a lot, like this wall, if somebody's walking up the stairs, right? Somebody walk up these stairs. Damon, walk up these stairs as hard as you can. So once everything's finished, you'll see it shake, you'll hear it. A lot of times people do staggered 2x4s. So this way, the sheetrock never touches. So like if you put a sheetrock here and a sheetrock here, it's touching. But if it's staggered, it's kind of like this. So that's a nice upgrade that people do. I mean, you could do adjustable boxes. That's another thing. These are not adjustable. So the sheetrock will sit right here in the cover. But sometimes an electrician will do an upgrade and these boxes with the screw will go forward or backwards. So that it's very flush with the sheetrock.
Moldings, I think.
Molding is a huge one. I mean, you can spend $5,000 putting trim in a house. You can spend $50,000. You know, there's different levels and quality of molding and doors. I would say if it's a house that has 10-foot ceilings in the first floor, I would try to put at least 8-foot doors. A lot of builders won't splurge and spend the money on 8-foot doors. Solid doors is another one. There's hollow doors and then there's super solid doors, you know? So there's a ton of upgrades. There's a ton of little things that you guys should notice in a house. And if you're realtors and you're going on listing appointments and you notice these things, I have found that owners who are proud of their homes that chose these upgrades when they're building new construction, they'll say, oh shit, my realtor is noticing everything I picked out. And I love this realtor. You know, the previous realtor is like vomiting comps and here's my stuff. Look how great I am. So know what you're doing on listing appointments. All this knowledge will help you.
I have forced hot air. I don't like forced hot air. Baseboard or radiant heating.
Yes. So people do radiant heating right now. Radiant heating I think is awesome. But on a 7,000 square foot house, just as an example, it's a $60,000 difference versus like separate $60,000. Back in the day, they've had radiant floors for a long time, but back in the day, it used to fail. Now, with modern technology, I don't see it failing. Baseboard heating is, in my opinion, the best form of heating, second to radiant, but it's expensive to do right now, so nobody's really doing it. And it's ugly. And it's ugly, yeah. It's an eyesore. So do you guys know the benefits of radiant heating or baseboard heating versus forced air? Forced air is basically a machine that's blowing hot air, you know? And that when you breathe that in, it dries up your nostrils and stuff, so people tend to get nosebleeds. You can add a humidifying system to a hot air system. That'll help, but there's nothing like radiant hot floors or baseboard heat. Baseboard is like a steam heat. So that's...
Radiator, but new way.
Yeah, it's like a new version of a radiator, yeah. So...
Those humidifiers on the HVAC is like a newer thing, right?
It's been like 15 years, it's been around 20 years, give or take. Could be wrong, don't quote me on that. I would never let my client put solar on their house. Yeah.
Why is that?
It ruins the roof. It's hard to resell because they either have to finance it or lease it. It takes a super long time. If the roof needs to be replaced, you have to pay to remove the solar panels and then pay to put them back. And you have to put them back because if it's leased or financed. Solar panels are good if you're like down to spend the money and buy them outright, or if you have the Tesla roof. So the Tesla shingles are fantastic, and GIF now has a product that's shingles and solar combined, but it's super expensive. Right now, Yeah, exactly. And right now, the cost of solar shingles outweighs the benefits tenfold.
It's funny because a lot of these solar companies knock on your door like, we'll replace your roof for you for free. But you know everything else that comes with it.
Yeah.
45 years, you're stuck there.
But they're actually, so if these solar companies are so sketch. They're not replacing the roof for free. They're just charging you for it and financing it into the cost. So they're using that you need a new roof. That's why you ever see I was just in a house in Fairlawn, dusty old house, like not renovated, disgusting. But it had a brand new roof and a crazy solar system. And I immediately was like, yo, who was the salesman that went to this old lady and sold her this solar system? She can power the whole block.
It literally took me 45 days more for my seller to buy a house because of the solar system.
Yeah.
Literally 45 days more.
Because of the solar system?
Yeah, it was such a headache.
The transfer process.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare.
I was like, oh.
You have solar panels? Get out! No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. He's like,
Why did you do it? What part? You put it on.
oh, hold on. Give him the mic. I want to actually hear this.
Let's hear what
How long have you had solar panels?
About a year.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, it's okay.
I'm just genuinely curious.
So it ended up working. We got a pretty good deal on it. They cut a tree down. They gave us a new roof. The government actually gave us $19,000 as a tax refund as well. And our utility bill is like 30% lower. So for us, it ended up working out, but who knows what the resale is going to be later on. It was pretty expensive. I think it's like $35,000.
So $35,000 after the $19,000 credit?
No. Subtracted. So
that's not bad.
it was a good deal.
Yeah.
you got a tree removed, you got a new roof.
Yeah, new roof, and we save about $70 a month on
All right,
utilities.
that sounds
So-
like a situation where it's not bad.
Very rarely does that happen, and I was
Yeah.
very skeptical about it. But
Did your insurance go up?
no,
So you didn't have to insure it through your insurance company?
no homeowners insurance. I don't know if we told them about it. Cut that.
No, listen, hold on. Hear me out. Hear me out, because this is also very good for you guys to know. We live in a world where building is getting better and more efficient and more, the entire house will be more efficient. So I'm working with somebody right now who's building a house, and everything in the house is electric. Electric stove, electric dryer, electric heating and cooling systems. The coils are electric. They actually have a way to use electric to heat the house. And when the electric is being used to cool the house, the excess waste energy is used to heat the pool. And it's all electric. So they're putting a Tesla roof on the house with 3 backup batteries. And those 3 backup batteries will give the house power for a full 3 days. And it recharges once a week from the sunlight. Because the exposure of the house is so great. It's like a $250,000 roof. But it's also a house where they're either putting a Tesla roof that's $250,000 or a slate roof that's $400,000. So there are unique instances and newer buildings that are putting this stuff in the house. So I want you guys to not know about that stuff so you don't sound ignorant. Because I hate solar. But I hate solar on a Cape Cod and Fairlawn. But if it's a house of that nature, then sometimes it might make sense.
What's a Tesla roof?
Tesla roof is basically, it's not a panel that's screwed into the roof. It's a shingle that's actually a part of the roof.
So all your shingles are?
All your shingles are solar panels, yeah. The technology, in my opinion, is not there yet because the amount of sun energy that it absorbs and converts is not there. I did a ton of research on it.
I'm sorry, what happens if it's cloudy for 5 days in a row?
Yeah, so then your batteries don't charge up as much as they would.
That's why they have backups, you said.
Yeah.
And that's why you work up with them.
Yeah, the way it works with Tesla at least is the energy goes into the backup, it goes into powering the house, and the excess will go into the backup system. And then as you run out of energy from the roof, say at nighttime, then it'll switch to the batteries and use the batteries. We're probably only going to see it in people getting screwed over from solar sales reps, or people who are building new constructions and thoughtfully, integrating it into their house. There was a house in Tenafly that it was a giant A-frame on the left, and then a huge dormer on the other side. And the entire A-frame had a solar roof, shingles. And just from that alone, they calculated that it was enough to power the whole house. So they put half regular roof, shingles, and the other half Tesla roof.
Does the Tesla roof look like a roof? Or
I was thinking.
It looks like a metal roof. It's actually gorgeous. It's seamless, and it also lasts a very long time. They say like 50 to 100 years.
You've seen it in person?
I saw one in person. Yeah, it was stunning. Yeah, I saw it in like Bergen County, but there is. I know that house you're talking about. It's gorgeous. It's absolutely stunning. It looks like a cooler metal roof, and it's supposed to withstand hail too. Your regular roof won't even do that. So they are fantastic, but I'm gonna give it a few more years before I do it. You know, I think the technology is only gonna get better.
You said you've been working with different architects, so some of them were nice, some of them not. How do you choose the architect? And let's say you chose someone, and somewhere in the middle of the process, he is not doing what you expect him to do, even if it's by the contract, but sometimes he can say, okay, this is, as you said, he comes to the inspection of the house, but he's like leaving in 5 minutes when he said he's supposed to be here, what you said, a couple of hours, right? So how do you break the relationship, let's say? Can you talk about your experience?
Yeah, totally. That's a good question because I think that happens not only with architects, it happens with plumbers, it happens with electricians. I think if you're a novice and you're not building homes left and right, you don't really have a team. And you're interviewing contractors and plumbers and HVAC guys, and sometimes you interview them, they're great, and then when the job starts, they're not so great, and you wanna fire them. You as a homeowner are the client, and you have every right to do whatever it is that you feel comfortable doing. A lot of times, if you're good at reading people and you know people, you can interview an architect or an engineer or a plumber and sit down and ask them where they mostly work. You can look up their reviews, where they mostly work, where do they live. That's a big one. Like I made a mistake of hiring an architect from Pennsylvania who did a lot of work in New Jersey, but lived in Pennsylvania. So site visits were hard for him. He also traveled a lot, which was a big one because it ended up affecting the Zoom calls and stuff that we had. I would say the biggest one is hire an architect who has experience in the county. Like if you're building a house in Bergen County, hire an architect who has a ton of experience in Bergen County. Because the town will judge your plans based off the detail and quality of the plans, but also if they know your architect. Towns like architects and engineers that they've worked with in the past. But say you did make the mistake of hiring an architect that sucks, or a plumber that sucks, you need to let the town know that you're changing architects or plumbers or HVAC guys right away. Because usually before you get your permits to build, you'll submit a stamped application for plumbing, stamped HVAC plumbing, all those in the construction jacket. So if you change contractors or engineers or even architects, whatever, it has to be known in the town. I would say never screw over a contractor because if you're building a house, you don't want to build a reputation of you screwing anybody over, and also you don't want them to do anything to jeopardize your project. So try to find a mutual agreement and try to make it as peaceful as possible, the breakup. It's like breaking up with somebody.
Okay, thanks.
Do you have any recommendations for plumbers, electricians, general contractors, etc.?
Yes, absolutely. The agents at Prestige have access to all of my contacts. So if you guys want to join the office, I would love to have you. I would love to give you all my referrals for sure.
Touche.
Anybody else? Yeah, after that last question, I was like, fuck this guy.
Do you know the contractor who's doing work in this property?
Yes, this house is owned by Russo Construction. He's a great guy that I met through another builder. I've built my business off of relationships, and so should you guys. This guy, they built 2 houses in Woodridge, and I hosted an open house, and the buyer came to me direct. And it was 4% commission, which is the general commission for new construction in New Jersey, 2 and 2. I know that they were builders. I know that they're working on other stuff. So I said to them, hey, this buyer came to me direct. I'm only going to charge you guys 2%. in the past, every realtor that they worked with charged them the full 4%. I only took 2% from them. And that solidified their business, and they referred me to other builders as well, which is how I met Joe Russo. And I have the same deal with him. If the buyer comes to me direct, I'm only charging him one side, and I'm still doing the entire transaction, so I make sure it closes. So this is a relationship that I've built. It's a relationship that I like because I like working with builders who are not cookie cutter motherfuckers, because there's a lot of motherfuckers in this business who will build a house. It'll take a long time. I'll give you guys an example. I had a piece of land. A bank reached out to me and said, hey, we repossessed this house. The guy thought he could build the house. He thought he was a good builder. And he bought the house, and he ran out of money. And he basically screwed us, and we retook the house from him. We got it back for $550, right? It's a piece of land in Livingston, 2.5 acres. You could build a 10,000 square foot house. I listed it for $750. Immediately got like a ton of cash offers. The highest offer was a lady who, she's like, oh, I'm a builder. I know what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. And she basically tried to renovate the house that was there. It didn't make any sense. So I wasted a piece of land. I could have gotten a sick listing, and the town would have had a beautiful new construction house. Instead, she built this ugly, disgusting addition, and she gave it to a random realtor. So who you work with matters. So you as realtors, if you have opportunities, make sure you're giving those opportunities to people who know how to take and maximize those opportunities. That's a big takeaway from me in this business, because I would say I've given away opportunities to builders and investors who definitely didn't deserve it or didn't have the experience to work with it. So this guy, Joe, even when he gut renovates a house, he kills it. He'll take an extra 3 months to do it right, and the work is beautiful.
What's his name?
Joe Russo. Russo Construction. He's on the sign outside. He's been a client of mine for 7 years. He's awesome. And I've gotten him land, and we're loyal to each other. He's just great. And his product is fantastic to sell. You guys are welcome to call him. You don't stand a chance. This is all his product is easy to sell, and it sells quick because he designs it thoughtfully. Like, let's go upstairs, because actually I have a perfect example for you guys. This is a perfect example. As realtors, when you represent a builder, right? And a builder tells you about a project, what you want to do is kind of stay in touch with that builder and kind of figure out where he is along the process. During the framing stage, it's super important you walk the project with the builder. When he told me about this project, I came here with him, and I immediately saw something that was alarming to me. And it was, that window was here. And this was here. This whole wall was here. So the bathroom was bigger, the closet was bigger. But when you're staring at this room, right, symmetry is super important in construction. And you got to always think about where the client's going to put the bed. Nobody really thinks about that during the framing stage. But in my mind, the bed is going to go right here with 2 windows right next to it. Nobody cares about a ridiculously large bathroom, because the bathroom was basically big the way it was. Here's your double vanity, here's your toilet, here's your stand-up shower, and there's a closet. It's a perfect bathroom. The extra, 5 feet was dead space. On top of that, this closet is already huge. There's a huge closet. So for the size of this house, this is a walk-in closet. You can't tell now, it doesn't look that big, but once this is finished and you have cabinets, this is sick. So I'd rather give the bedroom symmetrical space. And I told him, and he immediately, the next day, moved the window from there to here, sealed it up, fixed the outside, and moved it here. So that's the difference of working with a proper builder who's going to take your recommendations.
If when you order windows, if they standardly come with screens or not.
Yeah, so I wanted you to ask that on camera, because when the house is being built, all windows come with screens. There's different levels of screens you can get. You can get super thin screens that you can't even see them. It doesn't look like screens. Like, I sold a house in Chatham Township where the screens cost $80,000.
Wow.
So, yeah, they're crazy. But it didn't look like there were screens. You could literally see it through them. And they were so thin, there was no bugs getting through any of that. It was a wild screen. Anyway, the screens are usually left in the garage or the basement or on an off-site. If it's a GC, he probably has a site. And he'll keep the screens there so they do not get damaged during the construction process. The tape is ripped off, and the screens are installed only when the house is finished.
Back to how they moved it,
Uh-huh.
since the ceilings are vaulted,
Yeah.
that was already done, right? So they
Yeah.
also had to move that back as well?
Yeah, it's actually a great question because he actually had this like this because he wanted the vault to be a perfect square, which is the reason it was here. And he asked me, does it matter if this is now a rectangle? I said, no, the vault should be in accordance to the room. If the room is a rectangle, the vault or the tray should also be a rectangle. So symmetry. So he had to, all he do is push this back and then redo the vault. I came by that day and they were just smashing the wood, taking all this off. It was a pain in the ass, but he did it. And in my opinion, it made this room.
So for the changes that they did, how that go with the city when they get inspection? They had to report it.
So something like this, I wouldn't even disclose. There
Okay.
are on-site changes that happen all the time. I would say the changes that need to be reported are changes in like HVAC, changes in gas line. If you're putting the condenser somewhere else, then you got to let the town know about that. But something that's framing, especially a framing wall that doesn't hold any plumbing or gas or anything, it's fine.
Got it.
That is a laundry room. Oh, laundry's here, sorry. No, then that's just the office den. That's just an office den. So there's actually a 4-bedroom.
Downstairs?
Yeah, there's an egress bedroom in the basement.
What do you look for as far as like plumbing and sewer lines with basement bathrooms going up?
What do you mean?
I had a client, it wasn't even a new build, but he was just so concerned with the lines we were seeing in the unfinished part. The unfinished part of the basement, just being concerned with like the water flow.
He's concerned about water flow? Was it a new construction or was it a...
No.
He's concerned about water flow?
70s, 80s.
I would just stop working with that client. No, they shouldn't be worried about that stuff. The house is already built. Yeah, that's not something I worry. The only thing about bathrooms and basements that I hate, and this happens in new constructions too, if the builder's kind of cheap, they'll raise the toilet so that they don't have to dig up the slab or think about prepping the slab beforehand. I hate that. The ejector pump bathroom, I hate it. I hate it. Even though you do feel like a king stepping up to the toilet. Sitting on your throne.
Doesn't look nice though.
Yeah, no, it looks terrible.
Yeah, I had a question.
Sure, give her the mic.
Okay, so would you show a client, a buyer, this kind of property looking like this in this stage, or would you wait? Because some buyers tend to get very picky and uneducated. So if they see something like uneven or...
Incredible question.
So what would you say?
One, I'm going to say something, and this is super important. You can tell the quality of the builder based off the condition of the house during construction. The roughing is done, the HVAC is done, and the house is cleaned up. When you're GCing a house, the site has to be clean at all times. I remember when I first renovated my first house, it was in Clifton. It was a pre-1940s house. And I was like, no, I'm going to save money. I'm not going to demo all the walls. I'm just going to demo the bottom 3 feet so that the electrician can work, the plumber can work. And I'll schedule them all at the same time so I can get it done quick. The plumber looked at me, and I feel like he wanted to hit me, and he walked off the job. Because there was guys smashing plaster, the electrician was drilling, there was stuff everywhere. So the job site being clean shows experience with the builder. That's number one, which allows you as the realtor to walk a new construction with your client. It's your job as a realtor to determine and read your client. There's different levels of clients, right? There's clients who've built homes before. So they walk in and they're like, yeah, this is this is that. There's clients that don't know anything. They're renting a $1,500 one-bedroom, and this is their first purchase. Bringing them to a house like this is a little rough. They're not going to understand. They're not going to be able to see. And sometimes it's easy to lose sight of that if we sell a lot of new construction, and we're always on job sites, and we know what's up. But walking a buyer through that is difficult. If you have no choice and the buyer wants to see the product and the realtor gives you the green light to walk the house, I would print out a copy of the plans if they're available or ask for them, and I'd bring the plans here with the buyer and I'd walk the house with the buyer. Because you tend to get a better deal when the house is not complete. That's just known. Look up, we were supposed to host this training at 9 Flintlock in Montvale, but they closed up the walls. So that's why I wanted you guys to see the walls open. That house went under contract with me and my buyers. That went under contract like March of last year. It was just a piece of land. And that builder, the way I did it is, that builder had a house like this, one flintlock. It was listed for 1.6, and he was selling this for the 9 flintlock for the same price. And I compared both homes by looking at the plans, and I said, oh shit, if this sells for 1.6, then 9 is worth like 1.8. We ended up getting 9 for 1.55 because we got it so early, before it was even built. But if you can secure a product and you know the square footage and the location and the value is there, by the time that house is built, on trend, new construction is only going up. So that house appreciated 10% since we went under contract. And they're closing with a finished product. If you're really savvy and you really want to get granular with real estate, I convinced that buyer to put down 10%. There was no PMI in that loan because by the time they closed, the house was worth 30% more than what they were paying for it. So who you choose to hire as a buyer's agent is also key, because not only do they have to know about new construction, square footage, location, they have to know about loans and PMI and all that stuff.
You only represented the buyer at that time?
On that transaction, yes, they have a house I'm selling, but I represent the buyer and I'm selling their house.
Were the plans done already, or it was just the lot that they were buying?
Yeah, the lot was approved to build. He had permits and everything, so we saw the plans. So I walked. The location is amazing. The lot was amazing. And a lot of people, it's like eye candy. They see a finished product or almost finished product, and they're like, let's go for that one. But that house, because of the setback requirements, the house is a square. This side of the house was angled. It was cut off because of the setback requirements. And that changed the whole layout of the house. It changed the kitchen. It changed everything. And in my opinion, it killed the design and flow of the house. Somebody bought it because there are people that just don't care. They don't want to wait. But I told my clients to wait. And honestly, rates were like 7%. So whoever bought that house, they got 7%. And I think their product is terrible. And they paid 1.6. My client waited. Rates are now, they're probably going to close at like 5.5. And they got a better product with more square footage on a better lot.
And they could spend more money since there was more value there.
Exactly what they did. They upgraded the kitchen. They paid $50,000 for custom cabinets. He was going to put Faberwood.
If you have the opportunity to show the builder's prior work, do you always try to suggest that?
100%. However, in new construction now, a proper builder is not only going to read you as a buyer's agent, but they're going to read your client. If they feel like the client's going to be a pain in the ass, they'll say, we're not taking offers until we're done, which has happened in the past. When I first started my
I
career.
stole a house that way because someone was giving somebody a hard time, and I was like, my buyers are great.
Yeah, exactly. Builders want to be, if they can secure a quality buyer before they're finished, 9 times out of 10 they'll take it. But if they feel that buyer's going to be a pain in the ass, they're okay waiting. Because they're the ones they have the product already. Doesn't mean anything. An uneducated buyer is going to come here and make a big stink about the tile and this and that. You know? I had a client threaten one time to walk away because the shade of the floor wasn't exactly what they wanted. The builder's like, okay, walk away. And I'm like, guys, if you walk away, you're losing. You're starting your home search over, and I think this house is worth $100,000 more than what we're paying for it. So, like, I think therapist is one of the things that we do as realtors, which you guys all know. You know, talking them off the ledge, they make crazy decisions. Just this morning, I had a house under appraised by $10,000. Not a big deal. We didn't waive our appraisal. The buyer's like, cancel the deal. This is terrible. I'm like, bro, what? Chill out. So, anybody else have questions? All right. That's the end of the training video. I appreciate you guys coming. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Joseph is Real Estate. Stay tuned for more cool videos. That's right. Prestige Property Group is hiring.